I will be quick. I don't know where to start. It's ready to go. Let's turn the lights off. I have to say that Lori's not here because she's having dinner with Zaha. So you get the worst part of the partnership, but Lubin is here. And when I looked at the material that we had for 322 Hicks, which was basically a skin job, I think it's okay that I'm last because then I don't have to talk too much. A lot of the issues that all of us face working in New York City with developers, with tiny budgets and unbelievable schedules, we've talked about those. So maybe we should just look at some pictures. I found this definition, however, that I thought was really cool, and I've included more than one, our 322 Hicks project. You're going to see parts of a border station that's now under construction, which is one hell of a threshold. Anyway, the point at which a psychological or a physiological or psychological effect begins to be produced. That's the Merriam-Webster definition of threshold. And we'd like to take you to Brooklyn to a project that we inherited after our client couldn't get beyond the Landmarks Preservation Society. It's in Brooklyn. The blue circle shows you where it is. It's at the edge of the Brooklyn, what's called Brooklyn Heights and at Atlantic Avenue. The first thing we encountered, now we're not known for brick, you know, and they said, you better look at the neighborhood because there's a lot of it. And so Lubin and I and Lori said, my goodness, what are we going to do about this? It was a skin job. And the other thing about the site was it was more than a unit. It was a unit and a half, which produced a kind of funny building to build in. This is looking along Hicks. And we began to think about issues of cornice and surface and proportion. I hope this picture comes up good. Yeah, we got this on right. So this is actually curious enough, at Hicks, this is where Atlantic Avenue is. So this is the party wall of this particular building faces Hicks. Then there's a little pizza parlor. And then over here was a pre-revolutionary, very, very nicely detailed neoclassical kind of event, and then the 50s horror. And, but we had this site was virtually a cube, right? And that was beginning to look more like that guy than anybody else. And what we began to think about is the proportion of the smaller lot. And at a certain moment, we realized is that if we bent the facade, we could begin to bifurcate this building in two parts. I'm doing something subtle here with black and white to color because I think that really, I don't know, materiality counts, but also there's a formal arrangement, another set of theoretical operatives that go to work when you're designing something. We cannot take credit for the basic plan of this building, which was started by Douglas Carvis, who was the architect of record for the project. However, we'll take credit for every single crank that's in the plan. Doug had figured out that the building was small enough to require only one fire stair and, of course, one elevator. But we figured out, much like the Switch building, that looking diagonally down the street was kind of an asset that most buildings didn't have. And so we looked at the idea of a kind of a bay window, indeed. By the way, we had to go through all the same rules and regulations of that project, so I won't talk about the balconies and sizes. What I will talk about, a measure of economy. If you look at this, the public space or the corridor space is only this big, and each bedroom, of course, has a relationship to the window looking out, right? And so while we started our career in interiors, I have to relate that they didn't really build the inside like these drawings. And the developer went to a Greek cabinet maker and bought something which was so horrible it only appeared on a blog. But our design intent here was, of course, to make a living space here, loft-like, that actually looked southwest toward New York Harbor, and there was an open column and corner and so on. One of the aspects of the threshold condition about getting into this building, because this is a multiple dwelling building in Brooklyn Heights, which is mostly single-family dwellings, was the crisis of being a terribly small apartment building. And we realized that in front, actually on the ground floor, we had this condition of coming in to the world's smallest lobby and 2 doors, which basically meant it an apartment building, not single-family dwelling, and the idea of a common outdoor space that actually was shared by multiple inhabitants. So we began to think about this trellis work, which was a louvered trellis that goes in the front of the building, which actually provides closure and joins the 2 front doors, yet allows them to separate. So. Come on. So in the interest of economy, you'll notice that the bay window, or maybe I'll have to tell you that the steel structure here is identical to the inset here, but one is inside, one's an innie and the other one's an outie. This produced a kind of easy way for the builder to think about putting it all together as a kit of parts. So we only had really one window type, a creased or bent brick surface, a canopy, and a lower floor. The famous balcony issue of whatever it is, 50%, 7 feet, yada-yada, we saw this as an extension of the interior space. And actually, we did the same thing. We cheated at the 1.5 inches out. So I won't go on to that. But we were very interested in the material and the transparency in the deliberate contrast to the opacity of the brick on the street side. Another issue was, as I wanted to mention, actually Lubin brought this slide back this afternoon, there are multiple family dwellings in Brooklyn Heights that share peculiar common spaces in the interest of developing a little social distance between the street and the ground floor occupancy. This is a sort of mini Monticello. This was the really inspiration of our project. There was some sort of mapping problem, and the building here was pulled back and we found a little diagonal space, the first crank, which brought us to the plan. And of course, the ubiquitous loft building. Lubin one morning came into the office and he said, you know, I got it. I got it. Right across from where I live, there's this bay window that sticks out. And we realized that was precedent, which was enough for landmarks. And they said, oh, yes, that's okay, totally acceptable. And so we did it. There's also the folded brick and the development of, I'll show you some of our drawings. At first, we thought we'd make this thing out of glass. Then we realized somebody would drop something on the glass and it would break. So we began to think about other materials and came to the slats. The entire canopy probably cost more than the facade. It was manufactured by an artist. And we even took views of how it was stapled to the brick itself. And of course, what made this work from a design point of view was the different geometries coming together, the requirement of the canopy, its relationship as a tilted surface, meeting the chevron face of the building itself. I know this is in case you forgot something. We made a lot of drawings, not as many as some others. It got built. It was led to another commission, actually. However, I'd like to, because I've got a full 15 minutes, take you to something else for fun. And this is another threshold. This is the Bush administration's border station in Champlain, New York. And I want you to notice the gentleman here. You're driving south from Canada. Actually, you're coming south, but the cars are going north. And this is a project under construction which has many of the same issues as our little canopy that was a domestic condition. This is a national condition. It's about observation. There's the guy again, he's looking very carefully. It's about turning something into a light fixture. But before we get to that, we'll go over to Rockefeller Center, and I don't know if any of you have seen this. This is the world's smallest guard booth. We seem to be in the guard booth business. And here's Lubin when we were making this rail, which actually supports a series of, there are only two pieces of glass, two tiles there are two types, type A and type B, to make it simple. This is the plan. And by tilting the various axes and carrying this single flat plane around and through the McKim-Mead-and-White gate of Rockefeller University, we were able to produce a kind of dynamic response to reflect the ideas of Harrison at the big dome and beyond. Anyway, back to 1984 or 2008. These are the actually threshold pieces of the primary inspection. When you drive in, this is the view that you will see if you're Canadian trying to come to the lovely United States. I'm not sure how I feel about this project. Oh yes, here's more of this channel glass. In our case, our building was facing north. That's Canada, so the facade of our building was always in shadow. It was sort of what I call a Darth Vader effect. So by putting a skylight in the clear story behind the glass, I was able to bring the light from the south to the north face of the building to allow some illumination for our visitors. Here you can see the actual light coming through from the back. The idea here, I think we've heard this before, that when you're in a car or you're moving, this light effect will actually modulate the facade and provide a kind of bouncing effect. We're showing a lot of work tonight. This is, of course, Pier 11, transparent threshold and all that. One of the aspects of the Champlain project was that these huge steel plates had to come by truck, and of course the project had to stay open 24/7 to keep certain people coming in and keep certain people staying out. So we developed a plan where these huge plates were actually put on top of the booths, but not to disrupt traffic that could go in between, and then later be put together. This is not New York, so I'm not going to talk about it. I realize it's supposed to be New York, but it's a different kind of threshold. And I think that's going to be